Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to Thursday Night Live with myself and Holly Blades. With quite a bit to get through tonight. Steve Bruce's press conference, the match against Aston Villa coming up, and all the recent goings on at Newcastle United. Good evening, Holly.
Evening, how are you?
I'm all right. How's yourself?
I'm okay, yeah.
Good. We'll start off with Steve Bruce's press conference, obviously, because I think it's angered a lot of people again today, and probably including yourself. I have got a few little quotes from him up on the screen. I can't really see them very well because I didn't enhance it, but that's my fault. He's come out again and said it's not a must-win game. And he said that there's no issue with Matty Longstaff. He's just got to find a way back into the team, and he will eventually. Do you believe him? And what did you say? What did you think about him coming out with "it's not a must-win game" again?
I'll start with the Matty Longstaff thing.
Go on then.
I don't believe him. No, it's a load of rubbish. He clearly doesn't have a future at the club under Steve Bruce because he's been missing for most of this season. He was training with the under-23s. Oh, no, sorry. He was playing with the under-23s the weekend. And he's literally he's not even in the squad most of the time. He's not even on the bench. So I don't see how that's showing that he has a future at the club. And surely by now he would have had his chance this season. But no, he's continued with the likes of Jeff Hendrick and John Joe Shelby, who's had terrible form. So for me, that's just an absolute load of rubbish. He's trying to stop there being any more rumours about fallouts and stuff because I think he's had enough of that and he doesn't want anything to come out about Matty. But whether it will or not, I think it could eventually, and especially if he moves on at the end of the season. But it's rubbish. Matty has no future at this club under Steve Bruce. No way.
I mean, he claims there's been no fallout. I know for a fact that there has, and including his brother Sean in that. And I know that the Longstaffs haven't played particularly well this season, but given Matty's just been thrown in at the deep end every time he's come into the side. He's never had a run of games. Sean's been out of form, yes, but is he being played in the right way? Is he being trained the right way? I think he's better off pushing further forward as Sean, while Matty's more of a holding midfielder. They've never had a chance for me. I mean, he's played them a couple of times and then left them out the rest of the time, and it's just he talks crap, doesn't he? From the minute he sits down for a press conference, and all the bull rot starts coming out of his mouth. He's just inspiring nobody. And whether it be the Longstaffs, whether it be Matt Ritchie or however it be, it's clear that the players haven't bought into what he's trying to do at Newcastle United.
100%. You couldn't believe a word that comes out of the man's mouth. He could tell me the sky's blue and I wouldn't believe him. He's just, honestly, he talks that much rubbish. It's unreal.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen you pretty angry on various other shows that you've been on. And rightly so. I think people have run out of patience with him, and when he talks in his press conference about it's not a must-win game, there's teams around us. He keeps deflecting onto that really about the other teams are in the same position as we are. I think Brighton and Fulham would expect to be where they are. In all fairness to them, with no disrespect, they're not established Premier League teams, and if we go down again, then that's 3 relegations under Ashley, and that certainly points to the finger at we're not an established Premier League team anymore. But he seems to be talking about other clubs rather than Newcastle United, as if he's got blinkers on.
For me, it's just deflect and blame whenever and wherever he can, because he can't accept that he is inept. He's not capable of managing this football club. No matter how much he pretends in his own mind that he is capable, he's not. And he's not fooling anybody. So as the saying goes, a bad workman always blames his tools. And that's exactly what he's doing. He blames players, he blames coaching staff, he blames anyone. It's just getting stupid. He blames fans when they're not even in the ground. And it's getting that stupid now. I wouldn't be surprised if he was blaming the person mowing the lawn, saying that he mowed the lawn wrong or something. It's just ridiculous. It's embarrassing.
It's something you'd probably expect Steve Bruce to say, really, isn't it? I mean, he comes out with all this stuff. You expect him to say, "Oh, the rain was the wrong temperature," or like you say, the grass was cut wrong. The blade of grass was, there was a blade of grass in the way of the ball, which caused the mistake. It's anything but him. Tom, good evening. He says Bruce insists he has no plans about putting the England under-20 international Matty Longstaff back into his side. He simply has to be patient. I think Matty's been patient enough, Holly, hasn't he?
100%. I mean, if you think about it, there would be a lot of young players at this point that would have went to like a newspaper or the media or even on their own social media accounts and would have had something to say by now. But Matty's been quite respectful and just not commented and stayed quiet and just done whatever Steve Bruce has asked, played with the under-23s and just been willing to wait for that chance, and he hasn't got it, and he's deserved it by now. So if I was Matty, I would have been straight to Steve Bruce's door saying, "What is your problem?" And I would have wanted an answer, because I think Matty's been a lot more patient than most people would have been.
Mm-hmm. I think with Matty, I mean, he's done everything he can when he's been in the side as well. It's not like he's played badly either. I mean, yeah, he hasn't played brilliantly. He's not been, outstanding in any games, but he's done a job. And certainly you can make the argument for being in front of Jeff Hendrick, who, I have no words for Jeff Hendrick anymore. I really don't. I mean, what can you say about the guy? He's just useless. And for the guys like Matty Longstaff, Sean Longstaff, to see somebody like Jeff Hendrick getting in front of them, it's criminal. It's absolutely criminal. And if Hendrick's playing again tomorrow night, there'll be absolute hell on, because we'll come to the match a bit later, but honestly, it's incredible. David says it must be a Manchester thing to throw their goalkeepers under the bus, because Paul Scholes just done the same thing as Steve Bruce. Yeah, I get the Henderson's made a mistake tonight against Milan, but the difference is there, David. Paul Scholes isn't the manager of Manchester United. He's a pundit. And whether he played for Man United or not, he's a pundit, and he'll say how it is. Your manager has to keep things, behind the scenes and closed doors, not in front of the cameras, not throwing players under the bus like he has done with Richie and the Longstaffs. It's just ridiculous. Troll says, "Hey, Paul and Holly, hope you're good." Alex says, "Evening, Paul and Holly, looking forward to another great show. Thank you very much." Gordon says, "Evening all." Gordon, I can't read your blooming Chinese writing here. What think of the latest Takeover bull? I don't know, Holly. I mean, the Takeover, it's in the back of my mind at the minute, because I'm more concentrating on the relegation situation at the minute. The Takeover's sort of well gone in the back of my mind. I mean, there's more stuff comes out today. I don't know how you feel on it. I just don't want to talk about the Takeover until anything's actually official.
That's the same as me. I don't read about it. I just don't listen to anything people say about it now. Until the club make an official statement, I don't want to know. I think we've got bigger problems at the moment, and we need to just focus on staying up in the Premier League before we get caught up in that nonsense again. Mm-hmm.
Now, obviously, this is the first time I've had a chance to speak to you about this mole and the treason going on at the training ground. Obviously, we discussed it on my Monday night show, and Carl from Newcastle Fans TV thought it might be David Longstaff, who is the father of the Longstaff brothers. I tend to disagree with that. I mean, obviously, I know David, so I'm not going to throw him under the bus by any means, but I'm quite pleased it came out anyway, whoever it was. But I think Steve Bruce needs to just forget that and move on, really, and try and concentrate on the playing side of things rather than finding this mole. But who do you think it might have been?
Well, I have a reason for what I'm about to say, because it might sound silly at first. I think it's either Steve Bruce himself or one of his coaching staff, because the reason that I think that is because, so obviously it got leaked that Carl Darlow was getting dropped from the squad before he found out. Yeah. So it can't be a player for me, because surely all the squad will find out at the same time what the lineup's going to be. Because why would he tell certain players that Carl Darlow's going to be dropped and then tell him later? That just wouldn't make sense. And if one of them did happen to find out, they're not going to, go to the media and say that their teammate's going to get dropped from the squad, because that's really hurtful, and you wouldn't do that to your teammate. That just wouldn't make sense. Mm-hmm. So for me, it's either got to be Steve Bruce himself, and the way he's acting like he's annoyed about it is just some kind of cover-up because now he's panicking, or it's got to be one of his coaching staff. But I don't believe that Steve Bruce won't know who it is if it is one of his coaching staff, because they've been with him for years. Like, they've been in multiple clubs with him, and they're all meant to be good friends with him. And if it was one of your good friends that was leaking stuff to the media, you'd just know. Like, if one of my good friends was saying stuff about things that had happened in my life, I'd know it was them, because you just would. Like, it's easy to work out. So I don't believe for 1 minute that he doesn't know who it is.
That's pretty interesting. Have you ever thought about going into detective work, Holly? Doing some detective work with the police or something like that.
Maybe. You never know.
It's a good shout. I mean, to be honest, I mean, the way Steve Bruce has behaved this season, you could honestly see that being the case, couldn't you? But it's just in a way to deflect all the pressure off his back, he then comes out with, leaking stories, and then ends up, looking as if he's the victim in all of this, instead of everybody turning on him because of how Newcastle are performing on the pitch. I mean, it honestly, it could be, for me, it could be anybody in that training ground. Somebody may have heard a conversation, it could be one of the cleaners, one of the chefs. Anybody could have heard a conversation going on at that training ground and then thought, oh, hang on a minute, that might earn me a few quid if I leak that story, what I've heard today. So it may not be, it may be Steve Bruce himself. It could be Graham Jones. I don't think Jones is that type of bloke, to be honest. Steve Bruce, for me, he is the manipulating type. He is the arrogant type of man. We've clearly seen that over the last few months. So it's certainly not a bad shout. It could be one of the players who are just fed up with Steve Bruce, and they just want to take a bit of action, or bring to light that there is unrest in the dressing room. Because, Lascelles' comments after the Wolves game, what happened with Matt Ritchie, throwing Dubravka under the bus as well. All of this is going to turn the dressing room against the manager if the players are united. And to do that to somebody like Matt Ritchie, who we know is well respected in this squad, he's respected at Newcastle United full stop. So, that'll have turned the players against them, going at somebody like Matt Ritchie, surely.
Yeah, of course. Matt Ritchie's one of our senior players, which is even worse in some respects, because he deserves kind of more respect, and he's done a lot for this club long before Steve Bruce even came here. But even if it was one of the youngsters, even like Sean or Matty, it's not right for Steve Bruce to just disrespect his players like that. And of course, when managers go against the players, they're all going to stick together and think, no, this is not on, because there will be friendships within the playing squad. That's just a given. And of course, you're going to stick up for your friends.
Without a doubt. I mean, especially Matt Ritchie, who, he hasn't, I think he's lost a bit over the years, but, he's still, I still class Matt Ritchie in high regard, because the guy gave 110% whenever he's played on the pitch for us. His passion for Newcastle United when he's been here can't come into question. And when Steve Bruce does something like that, as well as what he said against the fans themselves, everybody is going to turn against him. And I think that the club itself now, going into these critical games, West Brom was a critical game. We didn't perform. West Brom, for me, deserved to win the game in the end, because they wanted it more than us, clearly. We were out of gas after half an hour, yet West Brom, who played the same 11 that they did on the Thursday previous against Everton, looked fit as fiddles. So what do you think about this 3 days training thing, Holly? Because this has got to be a reason that the fitness is down with the players, and maybe why we're getting so many injuries. We know the training ground is crap, and the recovery, systems that they've got in place aren't as up to date as the modern technology can be. But surely 3 days of training is just absolute garbage.
It's a disgrace. Honestly, it is, because we are a Premier League club with professional athletes playing for us, not just like random people. Like, there'll be people that work 9 to 5s every day, and they still manage to go to the gym more than 3 times a week. It's just an absolute joke. Like, Steve Bruce is acting like a friend and stuff, and saying like, oh, you can have loads of days off, do what you want. It's just rubbish. If I was a manager of Newcastle United and we were getting beat, and I don't think the squad collectively has been putting in enough effort. I don't think that they're actually comprehending how serious this position is that we're on the minute. And if I was Steve Bruce, I'll be saying, do you know what? Until you start putting in a good shift and winning games, you're in twice a day, every day. And honestly, I would, because it's so frustrating. to just think that they're kind of getting rewarded for doing absolute shit more. Like, that's the truth of it. And also, we've got an injury crisis, which we've had even last season since Bruce arrived at the club. And the fact that they're not doing enough training is obviously going to play a part in that, because they're not as fit as they were like under Rafa Benitez and stuff. And if they're not fully fit, then they're going to pick up injuries if they're not training properly. And it's just... And yet again, Steve Bruce is constantly complaining about the fact that we haven't got our best players available through injury and stuff, which obviously is still going to get injuries, but he's not helping the situation by making sure that the players aren't fit. Like, it's just embarrassing, and he needs to sort it out. He should not be rewarding shocking behaviour from these players.
It's incredible, isn't it, when we hear about them getting days off after they've played so badly. You know, like you say, this is where I think Bruce has a problem, because he sees the players, or the players see him as a mate. They don't see him as the boss, and he's not clamping down on anything. So when we do play badly, and then suddenly he puts a team out, he tells them to go and, you know, have a day off. It just says to me that the players are on an easy ride at Newcastle at the minute, because they're not being drilled in the way they should be. And that causes a lot of problems. It causes, you know, your mentality on the pitch is wrong. You know, your motivation is wrong. Your fitness is completely wrong. And then your ability to recover from injuries is wrong as well, because you haven't got that stamina in your body and what you need to recover in a quick way, like you can with you know, various methods of technology now that Newcastle's training ground just doesn't have. Liam says, I would take relegation if it meant PIF buying us, as the EFL will let anyone in. Yeah, we know that the EFL have a very much easier system to for takeovers, but I've heard that a lot from Newcastle fans, Holly, in the way they're saying, you know, I'd rather us go down and PIF buy us. But there's no guarantee that PIF are going to buy us if we go down, is there?
No, I wouldn't take relegation, because, you know, there's no certainty that we're going to get that takeover. And what worries me is if PIF didn't want to buy us, they pulled away because they didn't want a championship club, which you could understand. And then Mike Ashley was still desperate to sell the club. If someone else could come in and buy it, and because he just wants rid of it, he'll sell it to them. And like you say, the EFL will let anyone in, and these could be absolute cowboys that are just going to absolutely rinse the club, make us bankrupt, and then we'll be even worse than what are now. So no way would I take relegation over anything. Not a chance.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible, really. I mean, the whole club really just doesn't seem to be switched on to the situation that we're in, and that's the worrying thing. I mean, you know, is Mike Ashley now just planning on keeping Steve Bruce? You know, whether we go down or not, is that his remit? You know, just going to keep him? Because I'm not, you know, until a takeover comes in, I'm not going to spend money, you know, getting rid of a manager, spending compensation money that I don't have to do when somebody else may come in a couple of months and take the club over. We're just left in complete limbo as fans, aren't we?
We are, yet again, constantly. It's the fans that come out of it the worst, because there's a lack of communication from the club constantly, and we just sit here playing a guessing game. But how it feels for me is that the fans have kind of lost hope. Obviously, we had a bit of hope like when Rafa Benitez came and stuff, but a long time ago, because we were so drained by this whole Ashley era, and now it feels like Ashley's drained himself. Like, it sounds ridiculous, but I just feel like the fans are past caring at points. Obviously, we care about going down, but when we get beat, it just kind of feels like, oh, again, like we're not surprised by it anymore. And I feel like that's how Mike Ashley feels now. He's just like given up. He's just like, oh, well, what happens, happens, and that's it. And it's awful to see that, because it's just like nobody cares about this club anymore. It's just left rot.
Yeah, I mean, I was on Barry's, you know, getting to know you show last night, and we got talking about the managers and how different things are now, because, you know, if you look back to Keegan's days when he sold Andy Cole and he came onto the top of the stairs and confronted the angry fans, you know, you wouldn't get any manager doing that now, let alone Steve Bruce. But you know, that just proved to me that, you know, Keegan had the club in his heart, and he wanted to explain to the fans, you know, what he was doing and what his plans were. And, you know, that night he said, put your trust in me, I won't let you down. He went and got Les Ferdinand, and then the following summer he went and got Alan Shearer. So, you know, for me, a manager like that is what you need at a club who has the club in their heart. And Steve Bruce can go on about being a Newcastle fan all he wants. He isn't. We all know he isn't. and that's the annoying thing for me when he keeps saying, "Oh, I'm a Geordie and all of this," and he's not. He's a red, and we know that to be a fact. Tom says Carroll is frustrated this week. He's 100% fit, and Bruce brings him on for 30 seconds. Should he play tomorrow night? Holly, I was raging at that substitution, I have to say. That just really confirmed to me that Bruce was playing for a point. And he thought, I'll make a substitution now because he knew West Brom were on top. They certainly were miles better than us in the last 15 minutes of the game, and it was obvious that they were going to score if time had gone on anymore. And we're lucky in a way that they didn't have a prolific striker to put the ball in the net, because if they did, we would have lost that game quite heavily. But then, how would Andy Carroll feel? Bringing him on like that, and for 30 seconds of a game, it's embarrassing for Andy Carroll. So, Bruce may then turn around tomorrow night and say, right, Andy, you're going on the pitch tomorrow. I want to see 100% from you. When he's done that to him a week ago, this is what I mean about motivating your players.
Yeah, it was disrespectful to Andy Carroll. It was kind of like embarrassing for him. And I think you could tell kind of by his face that he wasn't happy to be coming on for the 30 seconds. But it just shows how desperate we are that we have to bring on a last 30-second substitution to hold on to a point from West Brom, the second worst team in the league. With Newcastle United, we shouldn't have to be scrapping about like this. It is pathetic. And of course, Andy Carroll's going to be annoyed about it. But I'd just like to think that if he was to start on Friday night, that he would try 100% because it's his club and he'd want to do it for the fans and just not care about Steve Bruce, just ignore him because he's irrelevant.
Yeah, I think the news has broke earlier this week that Andy Carroll's frustrated. And, I know people will say, oh, he's finished, he's injury prone, he's all this. He's fit at the minute, and that's the main thing. And I don't care what anybody says. If we can get crosses into the box, Andy Carroll is a threat. Yes, he gives a lot of fouls away, but some of them aren't even free kicks. The referees are just, they see Andy Carroll jump for the ball and he's towering above the defenders, and they think his arms are up when they're not. He's just jumping. And that's a frustrating thing for Andy himself. But if we can play him when he's fit, he can cause defenders so many problems in the air and on the ground. He's good on the ground as well.
He can. I think Andy Carroll gets way too much undeserved criticism. Of course, he's got a poor injury record and he's probably a bit past it now, and he probably doesn't have long left to play before he does retire or go on to coaching or whatever he wants to do. But while he's here, and we know he's a Geordie lad and he supports Newcastle, he's one of the only players, I think, in that squad that are desperate for Newcastle to stay up, and he will try his best. So just back him. If he wants to play, he's fit, and he's going to try, get behind the lad instead of just constantly saying, oh, well, he'll just get injured after 10 minutes and that. Just watch him and root for him, and you never know. He might go on to score a goal or help us win the game, but you're never going to get anywhere if you just write him off before he's even had a chance.
Yeah, exactly. Trull says, first he got fan mail, then death threats, and now a mole. Bruce should do drama. He should actually do a drama show, shouldn't he? Because, that's what it boils down to. If you look back, he said about getting all these fan mail letters. A week later, he's suddenly been threatened with death from the same fans. And then, he's now got a mole. So, your theory may well be correct because he's bringing it all on himself, to be honest. Keith says, Holly, one thing wrong with your theory. Bruce would need an inkling of intelligence to do that. So, yeah, maybe so. But I think Steve Bruce is quite, divisive like that. I think he could be like that. Given how he speaks to reporters now, the arrogance and the hatred he's got towards them, it wouldn't surprise me at all if he did that kind of thing, because his arrogance is showing it. David thinks it's Steve Agnew. I don't think it's Agnew, because I don't think Agnew would go behind Steve Bruce's back. I think they're as thick as thieves as it is. Liam says it's simple, we're shit. Can't really argue with that. Liam said we played for a 0-0 draw against one of the worst West Brom teams. Yeah, we did. And the problem is we are one of the worst teams in the Premier League now. If you watch Sheffield United, yep, they're probably the worst footballing side in the league at the minute. And, their league position proves that. However, if you look at the other teams around us, and including us, we have to be put down as one of the worst teams, Holly.
I hate to say it, but I think we are the worst, because Sheffield United beat us, and I guarantee you, well, I don't guarantee you, but I would bet that if they beat us, if they played us tomorrow, they would beat us. Honestly, I think they would. And it's just the mentality problems yet again, because those other bottom three sides kind of thinking, well, we've got nothing to lose, we may as well have a go and up for it. Whereas us, well, we just don't care. It's like we're on a week's holiday in Barbados. I just don't understand what's going on with the mentality of them lads.
It's crazy. I mean, Liam says here, every club Steve Bruce goes to, he's had injury problems, and Sunderland has top training facilities. Yeah, they do. They do now. And the problem is, I was reading today, Steve Bruce, and going on about his loyalty and his his love for Newcastle. This guy, you've got to remember, he managed both Birmingham teams, in Villa and Birmingham. He managed both Northeast teams, Newcastle, Sunderland. He's managed both Sheffield teams as well. So the guy has no allegiance to anybody. He can talk about being a fan all he wants, but this is what Steve Bruce needs to remember. He's making a fool of himself when he talks this way, isn't he?
He is. Steve Bruce is out for himself. He only cares about himself and nobody else. So he can chat as much rubbish as he wants about loving Newcastle and whatever else he wants to say, but it's rubbish, and we all know that. And I find it personally insulting when he says that he's a Geordie and a Newcastle fan, because he's not. Because I'm a Geordie and a Newcastle fan, and he does not represent me or anyone else, like you or just any Newcastle fan, in any way whatsoever. Like, just shut up. It's embarrassing, it's insulting, and just stop saying it, because I don't want to listen to it. It's actually awful to hear.
You get it all out, Holly. Get out exactly how you feel, and that's fine. I think 99.9% of the fan base is going to agree with everything you've just said there, because it is true. He doesn't represent us. He doesn't represent the club either, because he throws everyone under the bus, like we've said. He never speaks highly of the club. He doesn't turn around in press conferences. What he should be saying is, this is a huge club. We shouldn't be where we are. I take most of the responsibility for that. Yes, the players have got to take a bit of responsibility as well. But as a manager, he has to take the brunt of it. That's what his job is. If you feel in any management position, you're going to get questions thrown at you. And it's clear to see, he's looking unwell now. He's looking very gaunt in his face. He just looks as if he just can't be arsed anymore. But he will not walk, because he knows that he's due a huge pay packet if he gets fired. So all of this scheming, people are mentioning in the comments there that he's thick, or he won't have the intelligence to do that. I think that's exactly who Steve Bruce is, and he does have the intelligence to do that. He knows exactly what he's doing. He knows how to play the game. He's been around it a long time. So he knows exactly how to play the game. But the problem is, Newcastle fans aren't stupid, and Newcastle fans are wised up to what he was trying to say months and months ago. That this man is a liar, he's a coward, he's inept, he's everything you want to say. And yeah, I don't agree with any death threats or anything like that. Don't get me wrong. I'm not talking about that kind of rubbish. What I'm saying is, us as fans, we all see through him. And he doesn't realise that, because there's no fans in the ground. Because if there was fans in the ground, every single one of those fans would let him know exactly what we think of him now.
100%. And I'll tell you something now. I think we have got the best fan. Obviously, I'm going to be biased, but I think we've got the best fan base in the world. Like, I think any Newcastle fan could go on a talk show about Newcastle, or in some type of management role, and could do a better job, because we were telling the journalists and the media what was going to happen months before it happened, and they were refusing to accept that. But we could already see it, because we know how this club works better than anybody. And if I had 5 minutes in that dressing room, right, I guarantee you I'd make more of an impact on the squad than he's done in 2 years. That is no word of a lie, and that goes for any Newcastle fan, because nobody understands the club like we do, and that's the reality of it.
That you've hit the nail on the head there, because that's what really annoys me as well, is the fact that if we look at the players as well, I mean, they do need to take some responsibility, because if they've lost respect for Steve Bruce, which we believe that they have, then that then leaves the players down to play for the fans and play for the shirt and the badge on that shirt. And some of the players aren't doing it. quite frankly, none of them have done it the last couple of games. 15 minutes here and there isn't good enough. We need to have a team that plays for 90 minutes, and we just don't seem to get that from Newcastle players. So, they need to start taking a bit of responsibility and saying, look, we're not playing for Steve anymore. We're going to do it for the fans, because let's face it, the players have got away with it a little bit as well, because, no fans in the ground. Some of them who've just cruised on by this season and just, haven't been good enough, have got away with that in a way as well, because they don't have the fans on the back. So COVID's had an effect on that side of things as well for the fans, because we haven't been able to have the go at the players. But I think, players aren't stupid in a way. There's a lot of players on social media. They'll know exactly what's going on at the club. They'll know exactly how the fans are feeling, which makes me more frustrated that they're not doing it on the pitch. But time will tell. A2 says, if it guaranteed new owners, would you take relegation, rebuild and start over? I would. I wouldn't. And I don't think you would, Holly,
No, because it wouldn't guarantee new owners.
Yeah. I think what he's saying there is hypothetically if we got new owners, but that's the risk. If we went down, who's going to come in and buy us? And, the problem we're not going to come straight back. We're going to do a Leeds United, and that's the frightening thing. We all know what happened to Leeds. We all know what's happened to Sunderland, and we all know what's happened to clubs that didn't have owners, that didn't want to put any more money in, that had been fed up with football. It happened with Ellis Short at Sunderland, like Liam said before in the comments there. He didn't want to put any more money into the club, and now they're finding themselves, it looks like they're coming back a bit now. They're starting to play under their new manager, so they could be coming up this season. So it may well be a North East derby in the Championship next year, which is incredible. Nobody would ever have thought that, 5 or 6 years ago, which is horrible, really. I mean, Liam says I would look at Aston Villa. I think he's trying to say that Aston Villa, that's a club with progression and ambition to do well. David says he's not going to pay 12 million to get rid of Steve Bruce. It's incredible, when all the figures came out about how much they paid to get him in the first place, and then how much it's going to cost to get rid of him, Holly.
It's ridiculous, because you could have got any random Newcastle fan that sits in the Gallagher end, right, for free, and they would have done a better job. They couldn't have done any worse, could they? So they may as well save the money. Like, imagine paying that much for Steve Bruce. He's been absolutely ripped off. He wants to complain about that. Like, I don't know what he was thinking.
I know, but this is the thing, though. Look at Joe Linton's contract. He's the highest paid player. He's on 80 odd grand a week. It's bizarre, And if we do go down and we can't shift Joe Linton, that's incredible wages for a Championship player. He's probably that anyway, but you know what I mean about the 80 grand. It's incredible. A2 says Steve Bruce saying the book stops with him and then proceeding to make 5,000 excuses sums up the use of lion sack of kebab meat. F him, the Mackham wanker. Well, that's fair enough. And I tell you, A2's just sort of, I think he's as angry as you are, Holly, at the minute. Tom says, do you think Joe Linton will start tomorrow night? Hopefully not, because he was so dreadful against West Brom. We may as well start talking about the Aston Villa game tomorrow, Holly. Obviously 8 o'clock kickoff tomorrow night. I believe it's on BT Sport tomorrow. This is a huge game, and Steve Bruce can say what he wants in his press conferences and say it's not a must-win game or anything like that. This is a must-win game, and the Brighton game next week is a must-win game, given who we've got to play in the next few games after that. So Joe Linton starting for me is a no-go. I haven't got him in my team when I did my preview video. I don't think he was dreadful against West Brom. And, I don't stick up for Joe Linton a lot, but I don't think he was dreadful. He was our best player the first 15 minutes without a shadow of a doubt. Should have scored. But the whole team switched off, not just Joe Linton. But I haven't got him in my team, Holly. I don't know what do you think?
I wouldn't start him, but I think Bruce will start him. I'd like to see Andy Carroll and Dwight Gale up top in a front two.
A front two?
Yeah.
Right. So you'd go 4-4-2?
Yeah, I think so.
That's interesting. That's going back old school. But I get where you're coming from, and you're not the only one that said that. I read on Twitter today somebody had put that they like to see like Carroll and Gale up front. A little enlarged strike force. Carroll winning headers, nodding down to Dwight Gale. I've gone for a 4-2-3-1 formation. I've got Hayden and Willock sitting in front of the back four, with Willock given a bit of more of an attacking role. And then I've got Fraser on the right. I've got Sean Longstaff at number 10 and Elliot Anderson on the left. But I must admit, when I did the video, I forgot all about Jacob Murphy. So maybe I would put Fraser on the left and Murphy on the right. But those are the options we have. But to Steve Bruce, we probably don't have them options. That's not the way he'll be thinking, is it?
No, well, when I seen the lineup for West Brom, I thought we had better players on the bench. It was great.
I did as well.
Yeah, that lineup was bizarre. It looked like he was going out to get beat at first. I was just like, what are you doing? I thought he was doing a favour for his pal Sam or something.
Yeah, I mean, it was an incredible team selection. And I think everybody knew when that team came out that as soon as they saw the team sheet, we thought, he's going for a draw here, or he's put that team out to not get beat. There's no ambition in that starting lineup to win the game, which was incredible given West Brom's predicament this season and the way they've played. Because I think if we'd have gone at them like we'd gone at them the first 10 minutes, we would have comfortably won the game had he played a striker. Joe Linton's not a striker. He didn't play as a striker against West Brom. He played on the right. He used Joe Willock as the sort of false nine, whatever position he was playing in. I found that astounding that he didn't go with a striker.
I know, it was crazy. When he had like Willock up top at one point, I was like, what is actually going on? And he had like Gale and Carroll on the bench. It's just ridiculous. You couldn't write Steve Bruce. He says he doesn't believe in tactics and stuff like that. But my God, he's actually doing the opposite of tactics. He's doing the worst thing possible.
Yeah, I mean, it's bizarre. I mean, Tom even says there, did you hear Bruce talk about Villa today? He's worried about playing them. I mean, he says that about anybody that we're playing, that he's worried, they're a good side, they've done this, they've done that. What he should be looking at is what we're going to do to them, not what Villa are going to do to us. And this is the problem with his press conferences. Liam says, on paper, I wouldn't say Leeds got a better team than us. No, they haven't. If you look on paper, our team shouldn't be where they are in the league. We have got some good players, and I think you've said it before, Holly, as well. We've got some good players in this squad, but we're not utilising them to their strengths. We don't play our players to their strengths. We never have all season, and that's why we're in the situation that we're in.
It is. We have got talented players in this squad, and I've heard pundits going on lately saying that the squad isn't good enough and we've had a lack of investment, and that's why we're in the position that we are. That's just rubbish. We aren't playing to the players' strengths, and they're not hitting the heights, and Steve Bruce isn't coaching them well enough, because the difference between us and Leeds is that Leeds as manager is good and he's getting the best out of his players and he's instilling that mentality into them. Have a go, try. If they score 2 goals, you score 3 goals, and Steve Bruce does anything but that. He's like, just sit back, try not to let them score and try and hit them on the break. It's pathetic.
It is pathetic. That's exactly the word. John's got a good point there. Bruce knows that it's his last job in football. That's why the idiot won't walk away. I think we all know that he's not going to. That nobody is going to take Steve Bruce on again after Newcastle job. Nobody is. He's past it. I think Allardyce was very lucky to get the job at West Brom. Hodgson, I think, will leave Crystal Palace at the end of the season. He's what, 70 odd now. He's way past it. I think, these kind of clubs like Palace and West Brom and us, we need a younger manager to come in with a different approach, a different tact, a different ambition. But the problem is Mike Ashley won't bring anybody in with ambition, and that's what infuriates me. Guys, I've just put my PayPal address on the screen there now, just for my trying to raise the money for Parkinson's. If you go to PayPal and do it through friends and family with that email address, thank you to everybody that's already donated through that as well. I was astounded the other day when I clicked onto my PayPal and had so many donations. So thank you very, very much. Super Chat is also available on here. If you just click the $sign at the bottom of the comments, that will also let you donate, and I'll really appreciate that in advance. We've got some big news regarding Barry's hair coming up on the show on Monday, so do stay tuned for that as well. But I'll leave that PayPal address on there, and I really do appreciate anybody that's able to help. Like I said, 20% will be going to the channel. The rest is all going to Parkinson's UK. So thank you very much in advance for that. Paul says, same old NUFC. We play shit against crap teams and put up a good fight against good teams. It's been like this for years, e.g. Hereford. Yeah, I mean, it has been like that for years. Unfortunately, the likes of yourself, Ollie, and other younger fans have never got to see Newcastle, the success that they had under Keegan and Sir Bobby and everything like that. And it must drive you crazy knowing that we actually had a team in the 90s that was fighting for the league championship.
It does. Like, I sit and listen to stories from my family members because they're all Newcastle fans as well, and I'm like, oh my god, they sit there and they take it for granted, and I'm like, I would literally give my right arm to be at one of them games. I mean, my granddad goes on, he was at the Barcelona game, and I'm just like, I would die to go to that game, man. Like, I'm so jealous.
It was incredible. It was really incredible. And those are the times that we could have back if we got new owners with a bit of ambition, because, everybody talks about Newcastle being a massive club, and they are a massive club if you look at fan base. We're not a massive club when it comes to winning things. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, we're huge. We're alongside the likes of Man United, etc. We're not when it comes to trophies, but we are when it comes to a fan base, a stadium, all of this kind of thing. It's like we're a sleeping giant, but nobody wants to wake us up. Liam says, when we get back to the stadium, will you do match day vlogs? Yes, I will. I'll be doing lots of interviews with fans, before and after the game, and then putting a video together when I get home for match days and things like that, as well as the live reaction shows and things like that. So yes, I will. Which means I'll try and bump into you somewhere along the line, Holly, and get your thoughts. But I think the way you've gone on about Mr. Bruce tonight, I'd be having to use a bleeping machine quite a few times with you coming out of the match. Truth Tell says, we have the best fixtures left until the end of the season compared to Fulham, Brighton and Burnley. If we don't stay up, it's purely bad management. Bruce is one step from an Aldi cabbage. Yes, we do, on theory, have the easier running on paper. However, that's on paper. If you look how Fulham are playing at the minute under Scotty Parker, he's got them believing. And that's the difference between a good manager and what we've got, Holly, is the fact that, Scott Parker has got the players buying into what he's trying to do, buying into his system, and he's got the players' trust. And more than anything, he's got the respect.
Yeah, I think Fulham are definitely going to stay up. I think they look really, really good. I've been watching their games as of the past few weeks, and every time it's a good game to watch. Like, I actually enjoy watching their football. It's decent, I don't want it to be, but it is. But the thing is, though, is like, I was always that fan that was like, we could go on a losing run, and I'd always think every game, oh, we're going to win. Like, I would always be that fan. But for the first time in my life since Steve Bruce has been here now, I'm probably one of the most negative fans you could speak to. Like, honestly, I think we're down now. I don't think there's any coming back. And there's a lot of fans that are like, hold on a minute, like, we're not in the relegation zone yet and we've still got a chance to fight back. And I'm just like, nah, we're gone. Like, I just don't have any anymore.
Yeah, there's no. Well, this is a thing that's cropped up on a few Newcastle videos that I've watched this week. Is that there's, people are being hounded a little bit for being too negative, but there is no positivity here at the club at the minute. There's nothing to be positive about. There's nothing to be positive about on the players' side of things, the management side of things, the board side of things. There is nothing at this club to be positive about. The club don't speak to the fans anymore. We're left in limbo wondering what the hell's going on behind the scenes most of the time. We have to rely on moles to come digging out the ground and going to reporters and saying how it is, behind the scenes. And I mentioned this on Barry's show last night, just talking about how I remember the club, how good it was to come out and talk to the fans and keep them informed. Talked about Kevin Keegan earlier coming on the steps to explain why he sold Andy Cole. But we've also got the flip side of that, is when supporters used to have supporters club meetings, players and managers and board members used to attend these meetings and give monthly or 3 monthly updates to what's going on at the club, what the plans are at the club. You wouldn't get that nowhere at all at Newcastle United now, and it's so sad. David says, you go, Holly. So obviously people appreciating your rant there. Keeping a Toon says, "Wow, my dinner went cold, but Holly's rage just warmed it up." Tony Sparks, a Villa fan. Good evening. Bruce destroyed James Chester's career by playing him when injured, not letting him recover. If he had, he would still be at Villa now. Yeah, and I know a lot of Villa fans are blaming Steve Bruce for what happened to him, but he's doing it with the likes of St. Maximin again, because I don't believe he's been fit all season, Holly.
I don't. You could see when he was like coming back into the side and stuff, he just didn't look like himself. He wasn't playing as good as we know he can. And I do think that he's been rushed in. But Bruce has a habit of doing this. He constantly rushes players back in when they're not to full fitness, which ends up just making things worse, because then they end up getting longer term injuries and they're out for ages, and it just puts us in a worse position. So he never learns, so does he? He's just stuck in his own old ways. I can never get my words out.
You're doing fine, don't worry. Jesus, I think you've explained exactly how you feel about Steve Bruce. Jay says Bruce is no Newcastle fan. Tom says, who's in charge of our club? Ashley is in the United States, no sign of Charnley, and our club is a complete shambles. I said on Monday night that I think Lee Charnley's actually up in Mars on the Rover, driving that around. Little man in a Rover driving it around. I truly believe he's gone somewhere. I mean, I believe he was at the West Brom game, but he doesn't. I mean, the guy came out over a year ago and said that he was going to keep Newcastle fans informed with everything that was going on at the club. But yet another lie. Truth Teller says the players want to fight. Bruce ain't letting them. Yeah, I mean, this is what I mean, though, Holly, about the players. If Bruce isn't letting them, just take the shackles off yourself. Just be on that pitch. Jamal Lascelles, as captain, just say, look, sod what he said in the dressing room. Let's go out and win this game and prove to the fans what we can actually do and prove to the fans that we care. I think they all know that's how the fans feel about Steve Bruce, but it's about time that we went and actually did it for the fans.
The players do need to step up and start playing for the fans and play for the club. But it's like, I think the players have got off easily because all of the fans' blame has been put on to Steve Bruce, which is deserved. But of course, we have to realise that the players need to take responsibility as well, which is something I haven't forgot, because I do heavily criticise the players because I don't think they've been good enough and I don't think they've been trying. So they're not above criticism, and we can criticise Steve Bruce, but we need to criticise the players as well, because they certainly aren't doing enough for me.
Yeah. I mean, Liam's got a point there. The thing is, if we get relegated, we'd have to say goodbye to Maxi, Wilson, Miggy and much more. I mean, we've got 12 players out of contract. And the club haven't even told us if they're in negotiations to sign any of those players again. We'll not get to find that out until a deal is done or the summer comes and they've gone. And even when they've gone, the players will probably be the ones to tell us by coming out on Twitter and thanking the fans for the time they've had at Newcastle, which normally seems to be the case at the minute. Certainly Maximan's not going to play for Newcastle in the Championship. Callum Wilson, definitely not. He's still got England ambitions. Miggy certainly won't. He'll go into bigger and better things as well. And I think he'll thrive under a decent manager. I really do. But, I don't think we're going to get much money for Miggy, if I'm honest. I don't think we'll get 20 million for him. I think he's more like 15 million. Maxi's the one who we're going to get the big money for, maybe Callum Wilson as well. But the problem is, Holly, if Steve Bruce is still in charge next season, he isn't going to attract the same sort of players that Rafa Benitez was. I don't like making comparisons between the two. However, we have to be realistic here and say that Steve Bruce will nowhere near have the pulling power that Rafa did to get these players playing in the Championship, coming from other clubs to play in the Championship and get us promoted. That's why I think we don't come straight back up.
Yeah, we won't. And all of them players that are out of contract, I don't think any of them will sign a new deal, because it's a waste of time paying for us at the minute. And half of them's been tread shockingly by Bruce anyway. We'll lose all of the three that you mentioned, and I think we'll lose Isaac Hayden and Martin Dubravka as well, and probably some others. And I think we're going to end up with hardly a squad. I don't think we'll get to a point where we'll struggle to put a starting 11 out. That's how bad I think it'll get. And then how are we going to get players? Because Mike Ashley won't spend the money. So we're going to have to try really hard to get loans and free agents, and to get the amount that we need is going to be practically impossible. And who's going to want to come to Newcastle under Steve Bruce, relegated the Championship, doom and gloom? It's just going to be impossible. And I'm not even going to think about that because it's a right nightmare. I'm going to wait till it happens because it's so stressful to think about.
Yeah, I know. It is. But we seem to be the only ones worrying, Holly, as fans. We're the ones that are worrying about where our club's going, whereas the hierarchy and the management of the club don't seem to give a damn. And that's what enrages me, to be fair. Trull says 5-3-2 tomorrow. I think, God almighty, I hope not. If he was 5 at the back tomorrow, there'll be hell on. Joe Linton will play just because of his price tag. Joe Linton didn't play as a striker in the Bundesliga. No, he didn't. He played on the left, and, he wasn't prolific at the Bundesliga, and I don't know where the price tag for Joe Linton came from, to be fair. Keith says, again, as a Villa fan, I can tell you Bruce's formations now against teams above 9-1, against teams below 8-2. So it just says it all there. I mean, he's crap. Jason says, leave slow Linton. I am crap, and Hendrick sit in the stand, and we have quarter of a chance of getting points. Maybe so. I mean, but like you say, Holly, I have an awful feeling that they're both going to start again tomorrow. I think he's got this incredible desire to play Jeff Hendrick week in, week out, and I don't understand where it comes from. Joe Linton, I think, we all know how I feel on it. I think that there's something in his contract that says he has to play a certain percentage of games.
I think Joe Linton and Hendrick will play, but I don't think he'll start Kraft. If he does, that's ridiculous. But I would like to see Manquillo come back in. I know that he's been out for a while, and it's quite a rush to put him straight back in from the first kick of the ball. But I would do it because, to be honest, a not fully fit Javier Manquillo is still better than a fully fit Emil Kraft, so I'll put him in.
Yeah, I agree. The thing is, for me, Manquillo last week, if he's fit enough to be on the bench, then why didn't he start him? And if he tires in the second half, bring him off after an hour or 65 minutes and put Kraft on then. Kraft is a liability, and, game in, game out, we just have no faith in what he's doing on the pitch. Trulsen, slip some acid in Bruce's tea. At least it would be creative. Jesus. Jake says you shouldn't be in your position with the players you have, but this league business, not to mention Bruce assaulting the players in training, it's got to be absolute poison for the dressing room. I mean, you girls spoke about it on Monday night, I think, Holly, about the way that Steve Bruce went on with Matt Ritchie and, barging him. It was Steve Bruce who barged into him and caused the whole fracas to start anyway. Now, if you did that to a work colleague in a normal working environment, you'd be fired.
Yeah, this is what I said. And it's even as a fan at the game, if you happen to come into contact with Steve Bruce and you just shoved him, you'd probably get a ban from the match for lifetime or something like that. So how can he get away with it? It's literally assault, and the club aren't even doing anything about it. They're not even giving him a warning or anything. It's just it's fine. It's absolutely a joke. And if I was Matt Ritchie, he said he's apologised. Why was he apologising? He's done nothing wrong. He's told him a truth. Bruce didn't like the truth. He's being violent. If anything, it should be Steve Bruce apologising, not only to Matt Ritchie. He should be doing it to the media and apologising to all of the fans for how he's embarrassing the club constantly, and he shouldn't have been allowed to be in the dugout representing Newcastle United after that had happened. He should have been packing his bag and back down to Manchester or wherever he wants to go with his family. And Lee Charlie should have just been adios, don't come back.
Yep, totally agree. Couldn't agree with you more. And I think that, even though Matt Ritchie did apologise, why didn't Steve Bruce sit in the press conference and say, look, I apologise for my part in it. It was wrong. It shouldn't have happened, but it's all water under the bridge now. But I do take my part in it, and I do apologise for my part in it. That would show more dignity to me, but that just proves how arrogant the man is, that thinking he's the kingpin and he cannot be touched by anybody. And it's really annoying. Dino says we have a handful of talented players, let's be honest, and 3 of them are injured. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't disagree with that. Keith says, Paul, we threw cabbages at him and you still employed him. I know. I mean, but that's Mike Ashley. If you asked any of the fans, if they put a vote out before he was employed, should we go for Steve Bruce? There's not one Newcastle fan would have said yes. I'm pretty sure of that. A2 says Bielsa trains the Leeds players 5 to 6 days a week, and he's on the pitch coaching them. Same with Parker, Potter, and even Allardyce. Bruce trains 3.5 days and doesn't coach. It's the most unprofessional club ever. I mean, I know he doesn't even go on the pitch to train half the time. He's got his coaches out there and he's stuck in the office eating kebabs. Tom says, got to try and keep Watkins and Bartley quiet tomorrow. I mean, now that Grealish is out, Holly, I think it's, they will be looking to Ross Barkley more than ever, because he didn't start the match against Wolves. He was on the bench. But I have a feeling he'll be in the starting lineup tomorrow night. And Ollie Watkins was fantastic against Wolves. Very unlucky not to score. So he's the one to watch as well. So Villa still have dangerous players on the pitch.
I think overall, Aston Villa's got a really good squad. I think it's massively underrated. And the fact that they almost went down last year was a huge shock, because with that squad, you can see that they're very talented and they're going on to do good things now, which I think we could have all expected with that squad. They have got amazing players. Obviously, Jack Grealish is the standout one, which I'm pleased that he's not playing. Otherwise, I think we would have got a bit of a nasty surprise when we played them. But they've still got some good players, Ollie Watkins and many players that we need to look out for, because we don't want to just think, oh, their main man's gone, so we'll be okay, because that's not the case, because they've got many good players in that side.
Mm-hmm. John says, is there any other way to pay other than PayPal? There's the super chat option at the bottom of the page, John. Just click the $sign and that should let you pay via card. But I don't know if you need a PayPal account to send somebody a payment. I think you can do it on your debit card. I'm not sure. But the only other way is by super chat, which is on the bottom of the comments there, John. Thank you very much. Richard says, can't imagine Newcastle players hiding when the fans are back in the stadium, regardless of which division you're in. Fans will let them know how they feel, unlike that rotten cabbage. I just hope, for Steve Bruce's sake, that he's fired before the fans are in the ground, for his own mental health more than anything, to be fair, Holly.
Yeah, I mean, me and my dad were having a conversation the other day, and my dad was saying, like, I'm seriously worried about fans going back to the ground, because I think it's going to turn a bit nasty if Steve Bruce is still there, and especially if he took us down. I think things could get a bit, just not go very nice. And I agree, I think things will just go nasty, because the fans are just fed up now and we feel like there's nothing we can do, so people will do dramatic things to try and get him out. But Steve Bruce, at his age, with his wealth and the fact that he's looking unwell, he does just need to go. But I hope that Mike Ashley does sack him, because I dread to think what will happen next season if he's still sitting there.
Good point. James says, Paul, do you think Joe Linton will get the nod up front? I hope not. We spoke about this earlier. I really do hope not, because if he does, we're in trouble. We're in trouble. Paul says he's a lame cart horse. He is. John says, if we lose Friday night, is that the end of our season, and will we sack Bruce? I'm still of the opinion, Holly, that he's got these two games now. He's got this game against Villa, and he's got the Brighton game next week, and then there's the international break. So I genuinely think that Mike Ashley could be looking at the international break to make a change. Now, you can say that's probably too late. We know that. But I just think if he's planning on bringing a new manager in, it may give him the time just to get to know a few of the players and put something into action that he wants to do on the pitch, and give him that time over the international break.
I don't think it'll happen. I think, yes, it's too late and we aren't going to be able to attract a manager that's decent. And what's the point in bringing someone in who's just as bad as Steve Bruce? There's no point really, because we'll just be in the same position. And I don't think Steve Bruce will go even if we lose every game for the rest of this season. And he asked if the season will be over if we got beat tomorrow. I think it's already over. I know it's very negative and I don't want to be negative, but it's just how I feel.
Yeah. It can't be helped. I mean, you can only go off your gut feelings, to be honest. And I mean, a lot of us Newcastle fans, we've been in this position before under Mike Ashley, twice before. And my worry is it's all going to come down to the last game of the season, where we go to Fulham, of all places, and we need to actually get something. I dread to think what might happen. Sharky, good evening, mate. If you're not following already, go and follow Toon Army TV, Sharky's channel. Brilliant channel reviews, vlogs and previews on there as well. So go and give him a follow and a subscription. He says, I wouldn't be sad to see any of the players go. I want to see a clear out in the summer. He's right. We need to have a massive clear out in the summer. We need to get rid of players from top to bottom. Well, not just on the playing side. I think the whole club needs to be shoveled out and rebuilt. Tom says, Bruce has said today that he might have Wilson, ASM and Almiron back for the Spurs game. I don't think they'll be back for the Spurs. I think Wilson's got a shot, but I'm not sure about it. But this is the problem. Is he going to rush the players back against Holly because we need them back because of the relegation fight? And the chances are they'll get injured again. I
think he will rush them back because of the situation we're in. He'll panic and he'll just put them straight back in, thinking, oh, please do something, score a goal, and then, yeah, they probably will end up getting a longer-term injury, but even if they do come back by then, is it really going to make a difference? Probably not, because if we lose all the games up until then, well, that's kind of it, really, isn't it?
Yeah, we're gone. Keith, thank you very, very much for the super chat at £10. I really do appreciate that, mate. And good luck tomorrow as well. Thank you so much for that. Jake says is agreeing with Stu. Jason says the last time Villa won at St James's Park in an 11 versus 11 game was April 1989. Yes, it was. But this season is, quite frankly, a freak show for Newcastle United. And I think Villa will be coming up to St James's Park tomorrow thinking, do you know what, we can win this game quite easily. Martin says there's plenty of gangsters in the Toon. Can't we get them to kidnap Bruce and keep him away from the club till the end of the season? Lock him in the Pink Hotel in the ground till the end of the season. Yeah, maybe, if he went missing just till the end of the season and then suddenly crawled back out from under a rock, I wouldn't complain. Liam said we struggled against Newport County, who were in League Two. We did. Martin says Evening Holly. Brian says Bruce is too busy buying steak, bakes and sausage rolls from Greg's. I mean, honestly, I've never seen a manager as sort of belittled by the fans, because he's done the same to us. So, I think Steve Bruce has made a big mistake by targeting the Newcastle fans, and they're just all turning on him.
Yeah, that's the thing, though. He constantly, week in, week out, has pops at the fans and the club, and that's just a no-go. When you manage a club, no matter how you're feeling or how annoyed you are, you don't disrespect the club itself or the fans. That's just like a basic rule.
Yeah, 100%. We've got about 10 minutes left of the show, guys, so do fire in your comments. I'll go through them as quick as we can. And again, if you want to pay via PayPal towards my Parkinson's UK charity, email addresses on there. Go through friends and family, or the super chat button in the comments. Now, Tom brings up a good point here. Will he play Richie again this season? I don't think he will. I think he's going to put him on the bench and just make a fool of him.
Yeah, I think he'll put him on the bench. Maybe bring him on as a late sub, like an Andy Carroll type sub, but I can't see him starting the game.
Alice says it's too late to change the manager now. I'm not so sure. I think if you made the change after the Villa game, if we get heavily beat off Villa and you made a change then, I think we've got a brief hope. Yes, I do agree it's probably too late, but in hindsight, we just don't want Bruce anymore. We just need a new manager kick, and that might get us the points that are needed to stay up. Liam says even if we sack Bruce, we will give Jones till the end of the season like we did with Carver. Yes, but the difference is with that, Holly, I think that Jones has got the respect of the players.
He has, and I think that Jones is certainly more of a Newcastle fan than Steve Bruce will ever be, and I think the fans will prefer him, so I'd much rather see him there, and I think he couldn't do any worse, and I think maybe he could get a few points. I think the players would be happy to see that happen. Yeah.
Agreed. Martin says send Bruce to the cells in Newcastle in chains. Fair enough. As Benno says, hi guys, for me it's not over till the 38s have been played. Not confident we'll stay up myself, but I think Brighton will be our biggest game of the season next weekend. Yeah, I totally agree. That is a massive game. But if we lose against Villa, then the confidence going into that Brighton game is shot to crap. Sharky says if we lose to Aston Villa and Brighton, he will 100% be sacked. Then again, it's too late. And again, that's the problem. I think everybody's thinking it's too late. Bruce should go to jail for the rest of his life. Brian says we need to get rid of Ashley Penfold and tell them to take Bruce with them. I mean, we know it all boils down to Mike Ashley, Holly. That's where the book stops. He's been responsible for employing Charnley. He's employed Steve Bruce. They all must take the blame for what's happened in Newcastle United.
Of course they must. He's ultimately the person that's responsible for everything that's happened over the 13 years, 14 years. But for me, it's not Mike Ashley that I have the biggest problem with now. It's the Premier League. Because if the Premier League had just sorted this shit out a year ago, we wouldn't be in this position. Mike Ashley would be long gone. Charnley, long gone. Bruce, gone. We wouldn't have to worry about them. They could all be doing whatever they want somewhere far away from Tyneside. And that's down to the Premier League because they're corrupt. And until the Premier League gets sorted out, Mike Ashley can't sell the club and we're stuck with him.
Well, yeah. I mean, Jason says, wonder if money is a motivator. Our lads won't lose any money in their wages if relegated. Fulham apparently have a relegation wage clause with a 40% drop in wages. That's a good point that we don't, the club have come out and said that there is no relegation clause in any of the players' contracts. Richard, thank you very much for the £5. I do really appreciate that. Getting rid of Bruce is essential, but with the toxic nature around and Ashley in charge, who wants to ruin their management careers? Nobody's going to come and want to work for Mike Ashley. We've discussed this before, Holly. It's plain simple. That's where we are going to have to worry about who the next manager is going to be if Mike Ashley is still at the club.
Yeah, I can only see someone coming into the club that's just another dinosaur manager, or someone that's got absolutely no experience, and they'll just be like, oh, big club, yep, I'll go there. We won't get anyone half decent in.
Do you know, I mean, people talk up managers who might come in. There's no big manager going to come to Newcastle and work for Mike Ashley. We need some sort of takeover. That's what we need. We need a fresh start, fresh ideas, fresh impetus, and more than anything, somebody with a bit of ambition to take the club forward, Holly.
We do. We just need someone that's just going to change the whole philosophy of the club from top to bottom. The year's worth of stupid staff like Lee Charnley just gone, and fresh ideas in that have an ambition to go forward. That's what we need.
Sharky says, just a couple more comments and then we'll finish up. Toon Army says, I don't know why I said Toon Army, because it's Sharky. I know who it is. The table doesn't lie. We've been awful this season. If we stay up, it's easy for Ashley to not invest in the squad. I mean, it's actually a no-win situation for us, isn't it? If we stay up, Steve Bruce gets all the plaudits for keeping us in the division. If we go down, Ashley can't sell the club. He'll probably stick with Steve Bruce. I mean, it's just a horrible thought.
It is. It's honestly, it's just a joke thinking that he'll get praise for keeping us up if he does. Like, my God, how he can praise that man, I do not know. But I hope that we stay up just for the best interests of the club. Maybe then we can focus on getting rid of Mike Ashley and bringing someone else in, but probably won't happen because of the Premier League. It's just a no-win situation. It's just a mess. You don't know what to do. Yeah,
exactly. Well, that's it. The last thing I want to ask you, Holly, is obviously tomorrow night. I know you're doing the watch along with Steve, I believe you are. I'll be on with John, as usual. So take your pick really for the watch alongs tomorrow. And I'll be back on at I'll be back on at 10 o'clock live on this channel for the live match reaction. I hope I'm in a good mood after the game. I don't really think I will be, but come on then, Holly, give us a score.
I'll be positive and say we'll get beat 1-0.
And that's positive.
Yeah.
Is that how bad we've fallen now, that a positive result is a 1-0 defeat to Aston Villa?
Yeah, that's a positive prediction.
Well, believe it or not, I went on Barry's show last night. I went and said 3-1 and 3-1 or 3-0 to Newcastle. I can't remember. It was definitely. I don't know why. I'll get ridiculed after the game tomorrow. I know I will, but you just never know when Newcastle, do you? But thanks for coming on again, Holly. It's an absolute pleasure as usual. I hope you've got most of that pent up anger out of your system now and ready to go again tomorrow night. So thank you. You've been a star as usual. Will you be back next week?
Yeah, I will be.
Brilliant. So Holly will be back next week for Thursday Night Live, as she normally is. Big part of the Toon Review channel now. So thank you for joining us, Holly, and enjoy your week. Take care.
Bye.
Bye. So that was the fantastic Holly Blades there. And again, brilliant at what she says, very, very clued up about Newcastle United, and obviously very angry with the situation at the club at the minute, especially with what's going on with Steve Bruce and all this garbage behind the scenes. It's an absolute joke, to be honest. But however, the show has come to an end. I want to thank everybody for taking part in it tonight with your comments about what's going on at the club, etc., and what you think the result will be tomorrow night. It's a must win for me. It really is a must win. We've got to get something. If we don't win the game, then a point. A point's not really good enough against Aston Villa at home, given our circumstances. We need to win the game. But I think we'll take anything at the minute. I'd take a 1-0 win off somebody's backside, to be honest. And it's not all about the performance now. It's about the victory, getting 3 points on the board and trying to pull away from the relegation zone and keeping this fantastic club of ours in the Premier League. That's what it boils down to. But that's it for tonight, guys. I'll be on the watch along on John Sinclair's channel tomorrow night. And then I'll be live on here on the Toon Review at 10 o'clock straight after the game with Match Reaction Live. So please do join me for that, because it's great to get your comments in straight after the game and get to know the feeling out there of how you guys all thought of the match, the formation, substitutions, etc. And of course, the main thing being the result. So again, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you tomorrow night. Take care. Be strong.